And that's what it looks like.
Hello, welcome to Waypoint Survival. Today we're going to talk about an 1880s cast iron hobo stove. Stay tuned. Well, the sun's going down and we've got about a half an hour until dark, and I've got a little bit of a camp set up here. Got the long johns drying and some socks, and I've got the kit open and some things ready to cook supper. I was able to get several eggs from one of the locals. They have chickens, and so I'm just going to set this up so you can see what this looks like. I'm going to be demonstrating this Florence cast iron stove. Now, hobos use these, and as I said, the last patent date on this is 1886, and these were sometimes called sad iron stoves. They're a really neat little kerosene stoves. They used them in cabooses, and you could find them in many places. As a matter of fact, if you go to the Hobo Museum in Britt, Iowa, you can find a copy of one of these. But these were really neat. Now, they do make these still. They've started making new ones. Winterwell is the company that makes them. As a matter of fact, Dave Canterbury just demoed one of the new ones. I didn't know he was going to do that. I've had this for some time, but it's a really great demo. I'd encourage you to go and check that out on his channel. But tonight we're going to talk about cooking a hobo meal. We're going to talk a little bit about this antique Florence cast iron stove, and then we're going to cook some eggs. So this is an 1886 Florence lamp stove. It has Florence on the front and the back stamped right here into the metal, and then it's got your patent dates here on the front, and the first patent date is in the 1870s. It only has one window, as you can see. This is just a thin metal, and this is the original mica. It used to be called isinglass, but you can buy replacements for these. They still do make them if you're looking for that. And then on the back, since it's a lamp stove, it has a cast iron handle. It's pretty heavy, but you can carry it around. Here is the cork that you open up. You just take that out to refill it with kerosene. And then got a lever here that you open up like this. Just see that from the side. And then you can tilt this back. Now, this is not on here permanently. It's made so that you can actually remove this for cleaning, and then you can access the wick. Set this aside, give you an idea what that looks like, and then you've got a knob here that turns the wick up and down, and you do want to make sure that this wick is trimmed and rounded on the sides. Now, I purchased this quite a while ago from eBay, and the person I got it from said it's a great stove, it will work, but it needs a wick. Well, I bought some wicks for it, and when I went to use it, I found out that I couldn't get the new wick down inside. Well, finally, it came to me that maybe I had to look down inside and see if there was an old wick stuck in there. And sure enough, this was in there. And what someone had done when they backed the wick down to extinguish the flame, they went too far and it got below the little cogs that turn when you spin that knob, and it was down inside like this. So I had to kind of bend open the top just a little bit. It is a kind of a soft brass. Open that up and get down in there with a pair of tweezers. And I was able to get a hold of it and pull it out. Now, the new one is about twice as long as this. But here's an important note. If you ever get one of these and you want to replace the wick, you want to trim the bottom of this off. Trim off the corners so it looks like that. It's a lot easier to feed the new wick in when you do that. Before we light it, we're going to add a little bit of fuel to it. So we're going to take this little cork out, and then here is a nifty little can that I have. If you can see, it says Erie Railroad, and this is a kerosene can. It was used for filling lanterns and things like that, and a stove like this, as I said before, used in many areas, and of course something that a hobo could get a hold of. The ladies would use these for their sad irons, or cast iron irons they would use to iron things with. Alright, that's probably good enough. It was mostly full. Just wanted to demonstrate what this is like and how you could refill this, what kind of can you might use. It does need to be K1 kerosene, as regular lamp oil, which is paraffin, will actually clog up the wick. So that's very important, especially when you go to use this. It gets unusable, then you actually have to just replace the wick. Next, we're going to find the little hinge here on the back, and this will fit forwards or backwards. It will actually, the way these hinge pieces are made, you can put it on either direction. You can see these, they fit right in here like this, rotates forward, and then just simply snaps down. But to light it, you just rotate this backwards and you make sure that you have enough of your wick up. Now you can leave this off to light it if you find that easier, and sometimes that is simpler. Going to use our trench lighter here. If we can get it going. There we go. A little bit more difficult sideways. Now you notice that it's smoking quite a bit. It's because the wick is too high. You shouldn't have any smoke if a kerosene heater or lantern is adjusted properly. Alright, you can see there, we turned it down, got a nice flame visible, and heat coming out, but no smoke. We've got our eggs in there. I'm going to add a little salt. Alright, we've got our eggs, our salt, and I want you to notice that again, there's no smoke coming out of this. It's all about wick adjustments. I grew up with a kerosene heater, so kind of used to using these things. Not one exactly like this, of course, but we used to heat our home partially with one when I was growing up. So anyway, now what we do is we set it on here and wait for it to heat up a little bit. Now I'm going to go ahead and scramble these because I find that sometimes when I'm out in the back country, scrambled eggs are a little bit easier to deal with, and you don't have to worry about flipping them over and all that kind of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and stir these. If you notice some of this around the side that's a little bit of a chunk, I had some butter warming up and it's kind of cool out today, so the butter is already kind of re-hardened, but we'll get her melted here in a minute. Alright, these eggs are almost done. Got a little bit more cooking time here, but I wanted to add a little bit more information. Somebody might say, that's an awful heavy thing. It's cast iron. Yeah, it weighs several pounds. I said, why would a hobo carry that? Well, a hobo is not necessarily going to carry this stove. Generally speaking, it would be found, as I said, perhaps in a caboose, could be found in a railroad line shack or a switching station perhaps, and would be something that they could use. Also, housewives use these, as I said, to warm up their irons before they would iron their clothes. And so, since this one in particular came from the 1870s, they made a lot of them up into the early 20th century. And so these would be easy to get a hold of as people move to different types of heating, and would be something that you could get for pretty cheap, maybe even for free. But again, you wouldn't necessarily carry this around with you in your pack because it'd be too heavy. But it would be, as I said, in places that the railroad would use. But you could also find something like this in the hobo jungles. And you would have a lot of stationary items there, tools, and different things that various hobos would use when they would come into camp. And this would be really nice, especially for the summertime. Again, the way that it's surrounded, it's pretty well windproof, and wouldn't be hot. You'd have to start a fire. All you'd have to do is source a little kerosene. It's very plentiful back then. Of course, people used it in their lanterns. They were called coal oil lanterns. Kerosene, often referred to as coal oil back in those days. And so again, something very useful, very easy, doesn't put out a whole lot of heat like a campfire, but it's a perfect size for camping. Perfect size for the hobo community to use. Alright, they are done. Of course, before we can eat and enjoy, we have to be properly thankful for our food. Now, there's an old hobo trick that I learned some time ago. It was said that an old hobo mentioned that when you eat, you use a small spoon. Makes the meal last longer. When you never know where your next meal's coming from, it's important that you savor every bite. Wow. Again, food cooked in the outdoors, it's just so much better. The nice thing about this stove is because it's kerosene, it's going to burn a really long time on a little bit of fuel. They're very fuel efficient. Now when you're finished and you want to extinguish the flame, you can just blow straight down in there and that will extinguish it. Or the way you're supposed to do it is you take the knob here and you just turn it down until the flame is extinguished, and it will go out for lack of oxygen. Now you want to make sure that you don't turn that down too far. If you do, you'll have a hard time getting it back out. Like I said, you have to use some tweezers and have to play and work with it to get it out of there. That's how you extinguish it. Make sure you don't touch this. This is going to be super hot, so you don't need to like open this up and try to flip that back. I mean, sure, you could do that, but the best way is to either blow it out from the top or just to roll that down there and extinguish the flame just as you would any normal oil lantern. This is James Bender for Waypoint Survival. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Also make sure and check out the links in the description box below just under the More button. And while you're down there, you'll also find our waypointsurvival.com link. And this is where you can sign up to take survival and bushcraft classes here at our beautiful training facility in Southern Ohio. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the channel. We'd really appreciate it. And when you do subscribe, make sure and press that bell button so that you can stay notified of all of our upcoming videos. And we'll talk to you next time.